What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a film that came to VOD recently, and I believe HBO Max. And I wanted to watch this movie because it stars Dakota Johnson. And despite the fact that Dakota has picked some movies in the past that I have not been a fan of, I'm looking at you, Madam Web, she typically picks projects that I really enjoy watching. I'm a huge fan of Cha Cha Real Smooth. Suspiria 2018 is one of my favorite films of all time. And I think when you put Dakota in the right situation, she is just such an incredible actress that really brings a lot to any movie she's involved in. And I read the plot description of this movie and I was really interested to check it out. And I saw one of the directors was Notaro, who I know a lot of people really like. I think she's really funny. I figured no matter what, this would be entertaining and have some funny moments. And the movie I'm going to be talking about with you today is Am I Okay? Am I Okay is directed by Notaro and Stephanie Allynne. Lucy and Jane have been best friends for most of their lives and think they know everything there is to know about each other. But when Jane announces she's moving to London, Lucy reveals a long-held secret. As Jane tries to help Lucy, their friendship is thrown into chaos. So, as I said, I really like Dakota Johnson. I was looking forward to watching this movie, and I think this movie is very entertaining but incredibly flawed. I think that the movie has so many charming moments and real moments of chemistry between these characters that work very, very well. But I think the pacing is incredibly sloppy, and I think some of the emotional core of the movie is handled in a way that doesn't make it completely and totally satisfying, but I still think the movie overall is worth a watch, and I'm going to talk about it with you as a whole today. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Lucy, played by Dakota Johnson, who at heart is a painter. She wants to paint, but she hasn't really pursued it as a career. She's very hard on herself. She doesn't think her work is good enough, and so instead she's working as a receptionist at a massage therapy office, and she's dating this guy, but she doesn't really make it serious. They're really close friends, but you can tell that she's not really completely and totally invested in it. And then we're introduced to Jane, played by Sonoya Mizuno, who is very successful in her career and is thriving at her job. And the two of them are close friends. They have been for their entire lives. And early on in the film, we're just seeing them spend time together, go place to place. Jane is kind of pressuring Lucy to move forward in her relationship and says, like, hey, you can't stay stagnant forever. You need to settle down, blah, blah, blah. And Jane, shortly after this situation, gets offered a job to relocate to London from where they are currently living. And when she drops this bombshell on Lucy, it completely destroys her because Lucy doesn't have a whole lot of friends outside of her, and she just feels like she's going to be alone. And so while they're having this conversation together, while they're drunk one night, she says, I think I'm gay, and has thought that she's gay for a while but doesn't really know how to approach it. And so the entirety of the film becomes Lucy trying to come to terms with the fact that her friend is leaving while also trying to embrace her sexuality and come to terms with the fact that she believes that she is gay, and goes out in the dating pool and tries to see if she can finally become comfortable in her own skin. So as I said, I thought this movie was really entertaining but incredibly flawed. And I'll start with the positives. The two lead performances here are fantastic. I think Dakota Johnson does a really great job here at portraying this character who is very insecure and uncomfortable in her own skin, but lives her life the way that she wants to live it and is willing to try and do things differently, but doesn't necessarily have what it takes to push herself all the way there. And I think this character wouldn't work as well if it was played by someone else. I just think Dakota Johnson is able to really convey a lot of emotion through not only her facial expressions, but her bodily movements and the way she reacts to certain dialogue. It just feels very natural. And I also really like Sonoya Mizuno's performance as well. She's very much this successful, driven, kind of hyper, loves her job and is good at her job type of person. And so the contrasting personalities works really well and makes for a really easy watch because the two of them are very close, but they're from very different worlds and they approach life in a very different way. And I think that made the movie really easy to watch. There are a lot of great comedic bits in here that had me laughing really hard, that I thought were timed really well. The humor is very dry, which is something that I can appreciate. I like really dry, dark humor, and there's tons of that laden throughout this film. It's pretty well shot, honestly. For this type of movie, it's not anything like super spectacular, but it looks good and it's easy to invest yourself in for like an hour and 25 minutes. After all those positives are when my problems start to arise. And a lot of my problems are with the structure that kind of makes the intentions of the film really confusing early on. Early in the film, just the way characters are shot in the frame and the way they look at one another, it seems like the movie is going to go in the direction of like, okay, Lucy is upset that Jane, her friend, is leaving, and the reason why she's revealing that she's gay is because she's always been into her friend. And they really kind of frame it in this way that for you as a viewer, you're like, there's something more there, just in the way they look at one another and the way that they react to one another. And the movie very quickly tells you that that's not the case, which is totally fine. But I was confused as to why for the first 20 minutes it just feels framed like that's where the movie is going to go, and that's the direction that it's going to take you in. Then it becomes an exploration of Dakota Johnson's character's sexuality. And I feel like every queer person, when it comes to coming to terms with your sexuality and your identity, is very different. Each person experiences something different. Each person lives their life differently. But something about the execution of this movie and the way it's approached, it's in such like a juvenile and really poorly written way that it's hard to stay invested. Like, it just feels sloppy. And I'm sure some of you out there could say, well, sometimes life, it is sloppy. And sure, but like, you can convey it in a way that doesn't feel like the filmmaking and the execution of the dialogue is sloppy. There's this whole thing where Dakota Johnson's character becomes interested in this girl that she works at this massage therapy office with. And a lot of the scenes with their two characters just are really poorly written, and they just feel very unnatural in a way that, like, you're going to depict queer romance and depict this like uncertainty. I feel like there's a way to go about it that would resonate with viewers more, to where it emotionally fell flat for me. And as someone who watches a lot of queer cinema, it's disappointing because I know this was made, Tig Notaro is a queer person, it's made by queer people. Like, you'd think that there was a way to write this that it would be more poignant and emotionally moving for the audience, but it fell kind of flat for me. All of the internal struggles with Dakota Johnson's character's queer identity were kind of at the back of this movie, which is disappointing because clearly they wanted it to be at the forefront. But what worked best for me in this film was the relationship between these two characters' friendship. And the disappointing part is there's some of it that feels like Dakota Johnson's character is infantilized, like she can't make her own decisions and that her friend has to make all her decisions for her. And I think there's also a way to go about certain sequences that would make that work better. And I don't think it 100% pays off, but there's enough really great moments between the two that you can feel the years of friendship between them and feel all of this emotional boiling point. And that's where the movie was the most successful for me. I really liked those moments. But as someone who's been watching a lot of queer films in Pride Month and who is constantly looking for new queer films to add into my rotation, I was really hopeful with the cast here that the queer message of this film would really resonate hard, and unfortunately it didn't. I think that there are some cute, charming moments, but overall it really misses the mark in that department. But I still think the movie is really entertaining and has a lot of funny moments. Like I said, I think the two leads' chemistry is really charming, and by the third act I was like, okay, this is a little bit of a reach for what happens to wrap the movie up, but I didn't feel unsatisfied watching this movie. I still enjoyed myself. And I think if you're looking for a movie that has some comedic bits that also has a decent enough dramatic emotional core, you could do a lot worse than Am I Okay? So have you seen Am I Okay? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was entertaining despite its numerous amount of flaws. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.